Hey everybody, welcome to our second podcast here. This is podcast number 2 for Govbidpro.com. My name is Mike Menahem. I'm the CEO and founder of Govbidpro.com. Let's go over real quick about the podcast number 1 that's above this video here. And what we talked about there is about the registration and doing business with the government, why you'd want to do that, and the website and the process in terms of bid capture, proposal design and creation, and quote preparation, and then submission, which we're going to talk about now. Again, if you need to watch that video, that's above here, and then your notes for podcast 1, 2, and 3 are below here, below this video. We talked about federal and SLED, so let's jump right in to the anatomy of a bid in itself, the skeleton of what it looks like. Number 1, we talked about this before in the earlier podcast, is the due date's very important. Now, what's important to also realize is that the due date can change. The government's going to say, hey, we could change the due date whenever we feel like it. And they'll issue out what's called an amendment. So again, very important, the due date. You've got to meet that deadline. And so that's very important to have a staff that is focused only on doing these government RFPs and RFQs. And so the next piece of that is how to submit. So they'll tell you how to submit, whether it's email address or upload to a certain website like a NECO or that's Navy Electronic Commercial Operations. The government's going to tell you, they're going to cross all their T's and dot their I's. This is what you need to submit. This is how you need to submit it, and by when, the due date. And that leads me to my next piece, is what to submit. They'll tell you, they want, for example, a maximum of 20 pages. And one page has to have your company information. And for example, they're going to want past performance and a management plan. They'll write it out what they want. And then, of course, your price proposal, that's where you have to put your price proposal in. But they'll want stuff like your management plan, references, any kind of past performance, government or private sector. They're going to want your name, your address, your DUNS number, your cage code. We talked about that in podcast number 1. Of course, you want your email address, your website, all your certifications. Make sure it's all there. And we have templates that we can provide for you. Just follow along here in this website or email me at mike@govbidpro.com. And we can show you some of the templates. What you want to look for, the next piece here, the bullet points, and this is in your notes. Again, you can download that below here in the PDF, is watch for modifications. And modifications equate to amendments. So the government's going to issue an amendment and say, hey, we're changing the due date from, let's say, Friday, May 21st to sometime in the future in June or something like that. For whatever reason, they're changing the due date. You got to watch out for that. So you've got to have someone with their thumb on the pulse at all times for that. And then there's an amendment that you've got to sign recognizing that, yes, we recognize that you've changed the due date, or you changed the quantity of the amount of computers that you're buying. Whatever the modification is, you've got to recognize it. Okay, so we're going to stop here. Just one more thing we want to go over. There's 3 different types of bids out there: RFIs, RFQs, and RFPs. RFI is a request for information. You can certainly go after those, but there isn't really meat and potatoes behind that. The real bids are the RFQ, request for quote. They're looking for a quote from you. Request for proposal, RFPs, request for proposal. They're looking for a proposal from you. And that's pretty standard throughout both federal and state and local and education. But those are the 3 types of bids. I also want to talk about real quick about the set-asides. You want to look for that in the bids. So a bid could be set aside for a small business, or for a veteran-owned business, or a hub zone business, or 8A, or a disadvantage. If you're any of those type of, your staff is in that category, you need to apply for that category. If you're a woman-owned business, you should be what's called a WOSB, a woman-owned small business. And that the advantage to that, of having that set aside, is that there's certain bids that are only for that set aside. There's only so many bids. There's some bids only for woman-owned businesses. There's bids only for service-disabled veteran-owned business. You get the idea. So if you've got any questions, give me a call at 505-585-1749, or just email me at mike@govbidpro.com. We'd love to train your staff, your admin and sales staff on how to do government bids. And next thing is podcast number 3 below here. We'll talk about proposals themselves, and then any kind of back office contract support and contract modification. Thank you.